You alright? You alright, Ruby?
Phil walks the tree line when the sun goes down. Boots in the gravel on the edge of town. Backpack rattles with a lantern and a map. Looking for the thing
behind it. And then 2 3-foot tall, 3.5-foot tall guardians with glowing red eyes were there.
Boys been chasing shadows in the midnight grass. But Phil just smiles at the cold night air. 'Cause something out there knows he's there. In the rustle of leaves.
Yeah, I've experienced everything from angels to demons to ghosts to all kinds of other things I can't explain. I had my first Bigfoot encounter back around 2012 or something like that.
Chasing ghostly echoes in the pale moonlight, from forgotten forests to the desert's deep, where the old bones hide and the spirits creep. With a camera and courage and a trail to see, he'll follow any legend through eternity. Yeah, the world's full of whispers most folks never see, but they all know.
I think disclosure is inevitable for one simple fact. This is true. UFOs are real. You can ignore the truth, you can distort it, you can hide it, you can lie about it, but you will never destroy it.
Lights dancing in a cold black sky. Track band branches where the tall grass sways. Heard something breathing in the forest.
A guy standing next to my bedroom door, only at night, and he stood there, and I was 3-4 years old, and my mom thought I was crazy.
And when the fire burns low and the coyotes sing, you can bet he's hunting something strange again. Through the static and dark, through the myth and the lore.
Obviously, I believe that these things exist after the stuff I've seen. So you can't say to someone who's seen stuff, these things aren't real. Obviously, But yeah, people keep telling me they're not real, but I know they are.
running wild and free.
Hello, welcome, Friday Night Files. Hope you've had a great week. We had a reprieve weather-wise last week, well, this week really, but it started heating up again. And wonder of wonders, they say yes, another heat wave. Whoa, why not? Brilliant! Whoa, I can't wait. Honestly, really can't wait. Brilliant. Anyway, next Friday. Got something special also because it's a recorded, okay, that I'm gonna do as a premiere, all right, next week, because I'm away on investigation, well, holiday investigation type thing, okay, but so that'd be quite good. Anyway, I hope you're all keeping okay. I'll have a little look at the chats. Let's have a little look. Let's see who we've got on. Thank you all very much for joining. Do appreciate it. We have Delroy. Hello, Delroy. We have Kate. Hello, Kate. Thank you very much for moderating. Do appreciate that. Yep, Delroy Kelly. Oh, Dawn, Sasquatch sister. Thank you very much for being on and moderating as well. Wouldn't be the same without you two girls. Oh, Susan. Hello, Susan. Lovely seeing you on here. That's great. Also, we have Matt as well, and Keith. Well, hello, Keith. Thank you very much as well for being on here. Much appreciated. Oh, Keith Hornick, Matt Hornick. Sorry, my mistake. Good seeing you on here as well, Matt. You did message. Haven't had a chance to message you back yet, but I will. Okay. Oh, I see. You're out at the moment, but listening. That's great. Okay. Who else have we got? Obviously, we've got Roxy. Thank you very much for being admin on the show. Do appreciate it. Right, as we go along, I'm gonna be dipping in, dipping out of the chats. Okay. So we'll do that as a running thing as we normally do. Okay. Any questions? Leave the questions with a capital Q so that the admin can pick up on it, Roxy can pick up on it and highlight and star those questions towards the end of the show. And then that way we're going to be giving them to our guest. And our guest this week, very, very lucky, Christian Pedersen. He's an author. He's a researcher. He's ex-military. He's theologian as well, so he knows quite a bit when it comes to God and religion. So very, very lucky. We're going to be talking about disclosure and what that actually means to us as a society, and also the connotations it may have, religious connotations. So I'm going to bring him on now. Okay. Right. Let's have a look. Get that on. Hello.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, thank you very much for coming on. I'm going to swap you about because you got the comments right on your chest. That's not fair. I'll have the comments. That's
Don't
fine.
cover my UFOs up there.
No. I know. Very nice t-shirt. Yeah. Very in keeping as well. Very in keeping, I must admit. Lovely. Yeah. Anyway, you've been keeping okay lately?
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, you were talking about a heat wave. I mean, we're hitting. I'm actually in Orlando, Florida, here in the U.S., and
Oh, wow.
our heat index has been over 100. So even though the temp might be 94, 95, the index with humidity has been over 100 every day. So needless to say, I've got my air conditioning running nonstop. So I understand what you're
Yeah.
going through.
Yeah. And is it quite humid down there as well? Is it?
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's a pity, isn't it? No, when it's humid like it was over here when we had our little mini heat wave over a week ago now. Temperatures are reaching about 38. They're reaching 37, 38, around about that much, but it was quite humid as well. And with humidity is a problem, and that is because we lose body heat with sweat, don't we? But of course the sweat wasn't able to dissipate because of the humidity. So our core body temperature was getting higher and higher and higher because it wasn't able to dissipate and evaporate off from our skin, so we weren't feeling cooler with it. So it's a real ball ache really for both of us. But I think the weather's changing, definitely. I think it's definitely becoming concurrently every summer hotter and hotter.
It seems that way. Yeah, it does seem that way.
Right. I'm gonna put up about your book first of all, so that we get some kind of a background. All right, as to what your point of reference is before we start any main conversation. So I was just going to get your books on Amazon. I do urge people to go take a look. You can get it on Kindle now as well. Right, called The 7 Minute Sky. And briefly, when I quote, this is on Amazon, when unidentified objects begin appearing above strategic locations around the globe, intelligence analyst Sophia Ruse is pulling into a rapidly expanding crisis buried beneath government language, surveillance systems, and controlled narratives. What begins as another classified anomaly soon reveals something far more destabilizing. The phenomena is not random and it may not be new. So this is there's a narrative to it. There's a story to this book. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is actually my first fiction conspiracy thriller. And, just like everyone went to the movies in the last couple of weeks and maybe saw Disclosure Day, they went with the idea, oh, this is going to be an entertaining movie. And for the normies, it was. But the way I wrote this book, even though it's fictionalized, as you read the book, you'll realize that I'm actually speaking about current events. I'm actually describing politicians, researchers, scientists, experiencers throughout the book. And, all I had to do was basically change names. But I realized that right now, if you try to publish any type of book with information that is a little too close for home in terms of government institutions, they don't really like that, and they'll try to shut you down. And so the best way to do that, I think, is through fiction. I can just simply say it was all in my imagination and I made it all up and I decided to put it in a book, and they really can't touch that. So this was my attempt at a first fictional book to explain the way that I see things in terms of the way that government, scientists, researchers, and our culture is experiencing some of these different phenomena with a little bit of a twist without giving it away. But there's definitely a lot of phenomena throughout the book.
Did you pull upon any of your experience in the forces when you wrote this book?
Well, so when I was in, I actually never had any type of real life experiences that I know of while I was in. However, it was after I got out of the Air Force that I realized this series of synchronicities that happened. I was at RAF Mildenhall, which is not too far from the Rendlesham Forest, and we understand what happened there back in the 80s. I happened to be there the last year of the SR-71 Blackbird and some of the other tactical and reconnaissance aircraft that they had. I did several tours of duty in Turkey at Incirlik Air Base, Turkey, also in the early 90s, and got to be not too far from Gölbekli Tepe and some of those places. So I look at the synchronicities. Whereas back then I wasn't much of a researcher, and I didn't know much about UFOs or ETs or non-human intelligence. But I think that there was some synchronicity going on in my life at that time, so that I could go back in my memory and realize how close I was to these geographical places.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, did you see the Spielberg film Disclosure? Day of Disclosure?
I did.
I really wasn't very impressed with it at all. You know, I was it almost seemed like Spielberg was throttled. He was throttled back an awful lot. And you saying about writing it in a manner of a fiction, but with pertaining references to current events going on with the UAP and aliens. It seemed that that with Day of Disclosure of Spielberg, it was much really the same, but it was almost like every single UFO trope you could want to sort of wave a stick at, he tried to plant in there, you know. And it just didn't really gel. There was a couple of things which I thought were quite good, quite different, and that was the artifact. You know, that artifact played heavily, but nothing was fully explained,
Yeah.
which was a bit frustrating, really.
And I wonder if maybe that might have been on purpose, because again, the way that I see it is, this was not a movie for you and I. This was a movie for the normies. It's part of the slow drip of government bureaucracy disclosure that they have decided. And I do believe that Spielberg has been read in since the 70s, since Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I think
Mm.
in working with Hynek and Jacques Vallée is no
Yeah.
coincidence. And so he says that this was the third part of the trilogy. And so I think that, yeah, I agree with you. There's some disappointment coming from the way that we see it, because we wanted more. We knew that there was more.
Mm.
But you're right. I do believe that he was throttled back. You know, they said, hey, you can go this far, but not much farther. You know, even as we were watching the movie and you see some of the scenes being played out from the Roswell event, without giving too
Mm.
much away for those that haven't seen it. I'm just looking at it. I'm going, yeah, that's probably an exact replication of what they actually have.
Mm.
But short of that, no, I think that there's it's I think what he's trying to do is make the point. It's really not about UFOs or aliens. It's about what we don't have access to yet. And I don't know if everybody, when they watch the movie, really understands that there's so much more to it than we know of. And whether it be consciousness or the technology. But I agree with you. I think there could have been a lot more disclosure happening in that movie.
Yeah. I like they showed little snippets of like black and white film. And one of the ones which I quite tickled my fancy a little bit was the part with Nixon and Jackie Gleason.
Mhm. Yeah.
When Nixon supposedly took Jackie Gleason to see these alien bodies, you know, frozen bodies. That was quite refreshing to see, because especially in the film, that's one thing that, you know, the 47 Roswell crash. Yeah, I understand why they showed that. That's like a archetypal kind of, you know, UFO thing. But the Jackie Gleason Nixon thing, that was quite refreshing. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And then you had those nuns, all kind of like, you know, in absolute shock.
Mhm.
You know, watching the unfolding of disclosure happening, you know, and they were absolutely in shock. Do you think that we would, you know, we would find that the Catholic Church anyway would it be in shock, do you think?
I think, as far as my research, and also based on some of the research from Diana Pasulka, and other people, that I believe that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, is way more advanced, way ahead of us than the Christian evangelical right, church, at least here in the United States. They're more receptive, they're more open. Um, who knows what they have in their archives that certain people have been able to access. But I, I do think that that little uh, clip throughout the movie of the nun's reaction and how she didn't play it off. She acknowledged, but she wasn't in fear. She wasn't concerned. She just realized that, yeah, this is kind of how it is. And that was, I think a way of Spielberg approaching it from this religious point to say, hey, listen, you might be like her, and you might have a conception in your mind in terms of what this is or isn't. But I'm showing you that even within the Catholic community or religious community, they're okay with it. So maybe you should be okay with it. Again, there's that little nuance there of how he decided to put that on the screen. But I think there was an underlying message there that he was trying to convey.
Mm. Yeah, I think probably there was. I mean, I know that you pointed out that calling all UAPs demonic is often driven by fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And cultural conditioning rather than biblical scholarship. But thing is, if Satan disguises himself as an angel of light,
Mhm.
then wouldn't a highly advanced non-human intelligence offering false existential truths fit the biblical definition of spiritual deception perfectly?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, without a doubt. And in my research, and we can talk about that a little bit more, but in my research, um, I'm not out to prove whether UFOs, UAPs exist or whether they're real or ETs or non-human intelligence. Most of my research is how the Christian leaders and ministers are responding right now, what they're doing with that information, what they're doing with those data points, and how do they disseminate that information, or do they simply ignore it? And so that's what most of my research revolves around.
Okay.
Now, I certainly do have an opinion, and you've seen a couple of my videos, because I felt like, because of my research, I needed to respond to what was happening here in the United States. So, for those that are across the pond that may not be aware of what's happening within the Trump administration, he has something called his spiritual advisors. And these are the pastors and leaders, ministerial leaders that represent the Christian right, if you will, the Christian conservative party. And he lends his ear to them, and they are coalesced with the MAGA crowd, if you will. And so some of these leaders have certain types of end times theology, okay, or doctrine, and some of them have reasons for believing what they believe and saying what they say. But what I found most interesting is that in the last couple of months, there were people that represented the White House and this spiritual coalition, and ex-military personnel that gathered in secret meetings and had some of the larger Christian ministers and leaders that have larger platforms in the United States come to these meetings. And so the whole purpose of those meetings was to disclose what information they had concerning this phenomenon, and to, and I quote, prepare your people. And you can go through YouTube and you can go through CBN and the archives and see this was part of the narrative. They felt like they needed to get ahead of this thing. And I thought that was really interesting because most Christian leaders, pastors, clergy do not learn anything about this phenomenon in seminary or Bible college. So here I'm thinking, wait, so now they're the experts? It didn't make sense to me. And so I felt like I needed to address that.
No, thank you. It does. It's interesting. Have you heard of the Collins elite
Yes, I have.
and Jack Parsons?
Mhm.
People who just briefly, Jack Parsons was a rocketry engineer, fabulous, absolutely very, very clever guy. Way ahead of his time. Rocket engineering and design. But he was also he was also quite heavily into the occult, and the darker side of the occult.
Yeah.
Which they tolerated for quite some time, because he was such an expert. But Collins elite are supposedly, this is just for people listening. Collins elite are supposedly a group of very secret people within government. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, but and they have their tendrils into many facets of the government. And I remember reading Lou Elizondo's book Imminent, his first book, when he brought it out, and there was a part of it which he said he went to the what was it, ATIP, I think it was, and the head, he was asking for permission from the head of the DOD at the time, I think it was, and he said, no, what you're dealing with is there was connotations there of it being demonic, and they were serious, Christian, really serious, that and it came across in the book. Lou was like taken back. He was like, really? He said, yeah. And the head was saying, look, these things are demonic, and that's essentially what the Collins elite believe.
Right.
Am I right in saying that, aren't I?
No, from the what I've read, then yes, I believe you're right. And look, I everyone has their prerogative and everyone has their reason for what they believe, and I don't knock that. Whatever your belief system is, that's your belief system. You're entitled to that. But I think that I do have a problem where now it's influencing structures of government that don't need that right now. What we need is scientific research that points us in the next direction. Because if we simply just say, "Oh, you know what? We've all decided. This group has decided they're demons." Guess what? That just shuts down the conversation. No, we don't want that. We don't want anyone to label it. Now, do we really know what it is? No. We all can speculate and we all have ideas, but none of us can absolutely say we absolutely know what it is. And I'm okay with that. And I think it's okay, as whether you're a believer, you're a Christian, you're of any type of religious faith. I think it's okay to stay curious. But what I don't think is okay is to label something that you have no clue about, you have no evidence, and shut the conversation down. And that's kind of what I see happening in that space.
Yeah. No, you've got a very valid point. You have got a valid point, because at the end of the day, there is no single definitive answer for what we're dealing with. All we do know is that we're dealing with something that has been seen,
Sure.
and it continues to be seen, not just by the military. They're starting to bring out a little bit more by the Pentagon files. They're starting to bring out a little bit more in the way of personal video footage taken by non-military people, but for the most of it, it's all military video, which
Yeah.
doesn't. I would like what I would like personally. I would like the spectrum to be opened up a little bit. I agree with them opening up the files, and I agree with them bleeding out these files, and I think it's a good idea. Any at all forward movement we can possibly get, I'm much appreciated of. I really do appreciate. But it would be nice for them to release some of the files pertaining to some of the mythology, some of their, say for instance, with Carter and with Nixon, did they were they exposed? Was the information made available to Nixon to show Jackie Gleason that time? It would be nice to get some, not just visual proof. It'd be nice to get some recorded documentation, pertaining to some of these almost kind of like it's now like mythology, if you like, about these stories that go on, and that would be really cool if they did that. I think that would really be something to get our teeth into.
I agree. I think that the release of these Pentagon files, the Department of War, that's what we're calling it these days. Speaking of not being very impressed, I have not been impressed with all three tranches of information that's been disclosed. I'm looking at it and everything is redacted and it's little blobs in the sky, and I'm going, really? This is what you've been holding back? This is your classification status on these documents? But Jeremy Corbell just actually came out, I guess, yesterday or the day before, and said, listen, what's going to start happening is you're going to start seeing disclosure coming from other areas. And Stephen Greer said the same thing. He says it's going to be chaotic disclosure. So I think the government is up against the wall right now. Now, does that mean that the Trump administration is demanding these things be released and they're just getting pushed back from the three-letter agencies? It could be that. But I do believe that we have people that can create just as much of disclosure and drip disclosure as much as the government, and give us even more information. Maybe they're just waiting for the right time. I'm not sure. But you know what? I tend to empathize with a lot of these whistleblowers. I mean, enough is enough. Enough time has passed. And to say, to use the excuse that you don't trust us, that we can't handle it, what do you mean? I can't handle the truth, We can. I think we've matured as a society. And I don't really believe that when a lot of this information finally comes out, real truth, I think we've been so dumbed down that it's not going to really impress too many people, to be honest with you, which is kind of sad. But that's where we're at in terms of this phenomenon, this culture. Some of us are going to love it because we're going to say, see, I told you so. But I think the majority of people as a whole are going to kind of shrug their shoulders and go, okay, if it didn't show up in my bedroom, if it didn't come down in my yard, okay, big deal. Showed up in Virginia, Brazil, big deal. And that's just something we have to deal with.
Yeah, you are. That's a moot point, really, because we are dumbed down by it because we've had an onslaught of commercial films. We've had books. We've had an accelerated amount of material pointing to there being alien life forms in one way or the other, whether it be Ridley Scott's Alien or whether it be Contact, the book or the film. So we have been dumbed down. It's almost like the boy that cries wolf. It's become so kind of every day.
Yeah.
I think with society as a whole, it really wouldn't matter too much, which then worries me a little bit, because if they are aware that, and if this is a game where they have been drip feeding, and some of the best way of getting people's psyche around a certain subject like UAP and aliens would be to keep reminding them about the possibility of aliens and UAP in films, in TV series. The amount of times now where I watch a TV series and I am damn sure it's gonna be. I say to the missus, it's gonna be a multi-dimensional universe, isn't it? Again, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the aliens are going to come across and I'm like, oh, here we go. I've seen this one before. Yeah, it's a multi-dimensional. Oh, really? Why can't they use something original? You know, and it's that type of thing. Now, if it is a case that they've done this and we have become, as in your own words, and I agree, that we're dumbed down, the boy that cried wolf analogy, it wouldn't surprise us. So then it worries me from the point of view of what actually is it?
Yeah.
Why they are still worried and they still want to drip feed the presence of aliens. Is it because they are multi-dimensional? Is it because there is an aspect to this which really would be detrimental to society?
Yeah. Well, in my research, I actually had the pleasure of interviewing Paul Wallace, who is a former Anglican bishop and has written several books, The Eden Conspiracy, and he's kind of followed in the footsteps of Vatican, and so you have some people that can go that route as far as the ancient alien narrative, right? That in the beginning we were either hybridized or created by other types of hierarchical beings. And so I think if you look at that from a religious or Christian perspective, well, that just demolishes your entire Genesis account, right? And so there's going to be a threat. And then you can look at other people. I mean, I also, in my research, I was able to also interview Reverend Michael Carter, who's been on Ancient Aliens a few times as well. And he continues to preach and teach at a church there in Asheville, North Carolina. And it might not be mainstream Christianity, but he still very much understands and has a concept of Christ and God. So you have these different pathways that you can take. I think all of them can be perceived as threats based on your own belief system. I think the people that aren't threatened right now are atheists, for the most part. They don't really care. They've got no skin in the game. But I think it's people that have a very a very rigid belief system. I think that those types of people are going to have a really hard time with this. And the problem is we have some of those people in control. Referring back to Collins, you know. I appreciate even people like Chris Bledsoe, UFO of God. Chris has a very unique relationship with these orbs that show up at his house all the time. And Chris is just what I would refer to as a good old boy. He's from North Carolina. His wife and his family, they were raised up, in the South. I believe their background is Pentecostal, charismatic Christianity. But he's had experiences. He continues to have experiences. And now you've got people from NASA and other people coming in and researching this phenomena that he's experiencing. So, and Chris has his belief systems. He believes that these are angels. And so, again, you can go in so many different directions. I don't oppose any of that, but what I do oppose is shutting the conversation down and naming it this thing, and I know for certain it's this, and we're going to shut the conversation down. That's what I'm opposed to as a researcher.
Yeah. Can I just ask, have you had what you would say to be an encounter of, now not just UAP, not just alien, but in your life, have you come across anything that you really can't quite explain? Now that may be paranormal, that may be something which is just maybe even from the point of view of synchronicity, which is beyond comfortable.
Sure.
Have you ever had anything happen to you like that?
Yes, I actually have. And so the way that our brains sometimes as humans process information is differently. So um, it's kind of funny because I say all the time, hey, beam me up. I'm ready for an alien invasion or show up. I'm always ready. I've never had that I know of, and I'm very careful saying that I know of, because I do believe that we have technology to erase memory. That I know of, I've never had an experience in terms of UFO or non-human intelligence. However, in terms of paranormal, I would say that I've probably experienced that more. And it was during the time of my life where I was, you would call a charismatic Christian, someone that believes in the giftings, whether we call it prophetic, healing, that sort of thing, words of knowledge. I was knee deep in that world. And the deeper I got and the more I practiced that, if you will, the more I experienced things that wouldn't be considered normal. If I were to, lots of different things. I've seen miraculous healings with my own eyes. I've witnessed those types of things. Um, I think probably the most strangest event that ever happened to me. And if you know anything about evangelical Christianity, we believe that everyone needs to come to Christ to be saved, so you have eternal life. That's the basis of evangelical Christianity. So the idea is to go out and talk to people and get them to pray a prayer and that sort of thing. So while I was in that space and kind of doing those things, that missionary work, if you will, we would come across people that back in those days, I would say, had a demon, were demonic, or had some sort of possession going on. Now, I couldn't prove it at the time. And so I'll never forget the time that we were out witnessing, as they say, in a group, and we encountered some people on the street, and I began to pray with this individual. And as I was praying with this person, the person's mouth was closed, but a voice came out of their gut. This deep, guttural, I know who you are.
Or clip that. I want to clip that.
Yeah. And when that happened, in that instant, I felt like I was having an out of body experience, because what I had just experienced was not normal. It was out of this world normal. And so all I could do in my little, Christian mind at the time was go, oh, well, that's a demon. That was my reference point. But it freaked me out. And I have never in my life ever experienced something like that, where the sound of some other voice coming from a different entity came out of the gut of somebody else while their mouth was shut. And so I've experienced things like that as well. That might be similar. But that's probably the most exciting time in terms of the paranormal.
Yeah. How did it make you feel? How did it at that time?
Oh,
How do you remember it making you feel?
I got chills across my body. I, you know, even thinking about it right now brings back those memories. It was just, it was a sense of darkness and dread and despair and just chills and the feeling of death. That's the only way I can explain it. And
Mm,
so, I didn't know what else to do with it. Again, who trains you for things like these? Now, other people will say, "Oh, I see that all the time," and I had heard about that. I had heard about that, especially in places like Africa, where it's very, very common. And
mm.
so I remember talking to people that said, "Oh, yeah, I've been to Africa, and I've dealt with that before," and I was astonished because I never thought that that would happen to me. And to be quite honest, I didn't believe it. I didn't think it was real. I thought it was in my own imagination, but it was very, very real, and I'll never forget it to this day.
Can I ask you on the same occasion? Usually, when you're sent out uh, in such a manner that you go in pairs.
Yeah.
Um, so, what was the other person? What was their response?
Yeah, so there was actually quite a few of us. And typically what we would do is we'd all just kind of, find people that were open and receptive and willing to,
Mm,
spend time in prayer. And, we would try to approach them with grace and love. I was never one of these turn or burn type people, because I was even during that time, I was very inquisitive and very curious as to this whole phenomena, healing in a body or, experiencing something out of body. And so I think while we were experiencing that individual, and that happened to me, um, I'd love to say that everyone had the same reaction I did and heard what I did. They didn't. They didn't. I couldn't confirm it. Afterwards, when we were kind of debriefing, I asked them. I said, "Did you hear that?" And they said, "I didn't hear anything, but while we were laying hands on the person, I we felt an energy. That's the only way they could explain it. We felt an energy." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And they said, "It was just this powerful energy." And I said, "Well, was it good? Was it bad?" And they said, "It didn't feel good. It didn't feel good." And it made both people actually, when that happened, they both kind of took their hands off the individual. So it was powerful. There was definitely something happening in that time. Again, what it was, I don't know.
intriguing, intriguing. Yeah, it's a lot of times what we deal with um, is individual to us. It kind of like almost tags us. It almost like sort of what's the word? It points us out from the crowd,
Yeah,
and it obviously, I think, pointed you out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you
I
know,
believe there's a lot of mirroring that can happen in those types
mm,
of situations. I believe that sometimes different states of consciousness, we're a byproduct of those experiences. Whatever we put out, we receive back, and,
yeah,
and that can work for you or against you depending on your perspective. Um, why that happened to me. I've thought about it a few times. I wasn't traumatized by it. It was just something I
yeah,
thought, that was interesting."
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Um, but in your research, you cite quite a lot about the church and the church knowing much, much more than what uh, 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 we take them to know.
Yeah,
What avenues of research that you found interesting or you found surprising did you go down?
yeah.
What avenues did you go down that you found thought to yourself, "Blimey, O'Reilly, Phil, I didn't think it would take me down that rabbit hole." You know,
Yeah, good question. Um, because quite honestly, when I thought about, when you're going through your PhD process, you have to come up with a dissertation. And I thought, well, here I am at Liberty University. It's one of the foremost Christian universities here in the United States. And by the way, I didn't choose it because it was a Christian institution. I chose it because as a veteran, they take care of my tuition. And so Liberty had the best deal on tuition. So I said, let's go that route. I'm glad I did, because I had some great professors, still do. And so when I thought about this, I was already thinking through, I mean, talking about synchronicities, I was already thinking through in my mind, what is the church as a whole? What is the Christian church going to do with all of this information coming out? Because I saw it 2 or 3 years ago. Now we started having congressional hearings, and I thought, well, this is getting serious. This is no longer this taboo discussion. This is becoming mainstream. And what's the church going to do? How are they going to respond? What are pastors and leaders going to do? And so the more I thought about it, I thought, this needs to be answered. There needs to be research done on this. So I shot the idea over to my chairperson, and they approved it, which I was very surprised, but they did. And so as I began this, and by the way, it's what they would call a qualitative phenomenological study, meaning I'm studying the lived experiences of these leaders. And so in my research, I didn't have a lot. I only had 12, and I tried to be as diversified as possible. To be quite honest with you, I had the idea that most of them were going to say, we don't care about it. It's demons, it's spiritual, it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect us. I thought that would be pretty much what I would get from most of them. The only person I knew that would give me a different answer was going to be Reverend Michael Carter, because I'd seen him on Ancient Aliens, and he agreed to be a part of my research. And I thought, this will be good. He'll bring a little bit of the diversification. Well, Phil, lo and behold, 5 out of the 12 were experiencers. Almost 50% of these Christian leaders were experiencers.
Yeah.
And so that blew my mind. Now, did their churches know that? No. Were they preaching about it on the Sunday mornings? No. They weren't telling anyone. And I thought, this is interesting. So the deeper I got into my interviews with them and questioning them, the more I realized that this was not shaking their faith. This wasn't causing them to do what some of the other people have done in terms of their deconstruction or challenging some of their doctrines. They adapted. So for some of them, there was cognitive dissonance. That their mind just couldn't wrap around this new concept of UFOs or aliens. For some of them, they were going through something called social identity disruption, and then others, they were dealing with it in a way that, as long as they kept the idea that God is good and God has a plan, and this all fits in with the perspective of a great divine creator that loves us, that was their prerogative. And so I thought, okay, this is really, really interesting. So I think that for me, it was shocking, number one, to have almost half of the people that I interviewed. Remember, I didn't know this. I knew that one of them did, but to realize that 4 more did as well was really incredible. So in that process, I realized that this is more than just my research. I need to get this out there. I need to show, because what's going to happen what's going to happen when we finally do have stuff show up on the White House lawn? Now, what are you going to do? Pastor, what are you going to tell your congregation now? I don't know what you're going to tell them, because you're not prepared. You haven't prepared. You don't know anything about this subject. Seminary has not taught you anything. And so that was my thought process. I've got to give these leaders a tool. I've got to show them this research. I've got to show them how these Christian leaders and ministers and pastors are dealing with this phenomenon, how they're processing it, and showing them that it's okay. It's okay to not know what it is. And that's the majority of them. Only one out of my research said, yeah, I don't believe it. It's not real. It doesn't matter. Only 1 out of 12 said that. The other 11 said, it does matter. It's real. I don't know what it is, and I'm okay with that. Which, you know, kudos to them for not shutting down the
Yeah.
conversation. Because the
Yeah.
problem is, here's the problem, here's the rub. In their congregations are experiencers and people having these phenomenal experiences, and they're not going to the very person that they're supposed to. They're not going to their pastors and sitting down and having, you know, question and answer time. You know, how does this
Yeah.
affect faith? That's the, you know, the church, the religious community is what it should be, and it's supposed to be a safe place for people to go. So it doesn't mean that the pastor has to say, yeah, I believe in it or I don't believe it. No one's asking them to do that. What I'm simply saying is have the conversation, open it up, let the church be a safe place to have these conversations.
Interesting. Very interesting. Christian, we've got lovely guy, Matt Hornick. Thank you, Matt, for your question. He's just come up with a quick question at the moment. It's from the aunts. They fundamental Christian. I'll say it again. From the aunts, they fundamental Christian. They like to know how you can justify believe in paranormal when it goes against God, as all paranormal and UFO stuff is in their option demonic.
Yeah. So if I think the wording is off there as far as the way it got typed up, but I think I understand the gist of it. So so here's the deal. People that understand the Bible, you know, and study it, understand that the dark arts are right there in the Bible. All you got to do is go through some of the Old Testament. Anytime, you know, the prophets of God went up against the prophets of Baal, what were they doing? They were going up against their opposition. And so this is nothing new to Christianity. This is nothing new to, I think, most religious systems, in terms of there's always this opposing yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see is it going to challenge people of faith? Yes, it is, because what doesn't occur on a weekly basis right after, you know, church time on a Sunday morning is now we get to go out and battle the prophet of Baal. You know, we don't deal with that anymore. But yet we've got it there in the text. We've got it in the ancient text, and whether you believe it or you don't believe it or you think it's mythology, whatever. But the truth is that there's a history of it, right? And so I believe that we're in a time and place where people are going to have to kind of come to grips with some of these things that we have thought were mythology. I mean, you know, if you think about it, you know, my brother was an agnostic all of his life before, you know, even before he passed away, he was an agnostic. And he used to always joke around about, you know, me and my sky god. And, you know, I totally get it now. I understand the way that he saw it, because it's true. It's like, you believe in this sky god.
Mm.
And so I do think that we are in a place, as far as people of faith, I think we're in a place where we are being challenged right now in terms of our belief system. And so at the end of the day, does your belief system, is it able to withstand, is the framework strong enough to stand up to these concepts, and are you okay with that? And, you know,
Yeah.
again, you know, are you okay with whether you believe that there's Sasquatch or unicorns running around, or, you know, what happens when you find out they're real? In my research, I found that at least with these Christian leaders, they're okay with that, and they're okay having the conversations. And the most important thing is that I love this about it. They always turn back to, hey, as long as they know that I love them, I care for them, I'm here for them, I'm going to have open conversations. I'm not going to maybe have all the answers. Some of them were more scripture heavy. I'm going to point them back to scripture. Here's what scripture says. And I would challenge them and go, yeah, but there's no UFOs or ETs in scripture, you know, as far as we know of. You know, we can debate that. But I love that the whole idea behind this phenomena and addressing it was to keep people on the right track of loving themselves, respecting and honoring each other, and having a place, a community to have this discussion, this ongoing dialogue, and not shut it down. Again, that's, you're going to hear me like a broken record repeating that, but it's essential while we go through this process. I don't know if I answered that question or not. I'm sorry if I did.
No, you did. No, you did entirely. Yes. Yeah. I think you did. Yeah, you did. You did. My two pennyworth, I would say about 2 years ago, the Catholic Church made a statement basically saying, look, if miracles happen in the world, or also if aliens appear, and people see aliens, which was a little bit cryptic at the time, because it wasn't so in your face with the US government anyway, coming forward. It was before the congressional committees, and it was slightly before. And they made a statement saying, if people do come across aliens or witness aliens or miracles, then please understand that it is with the grace of God, because God also made everything, including aliens. So I think that kind of like sums it up from my point of view, because what they're basically saying is, yes, if they appear in the sky, then there is only the one God that they have to account to,
Sure.
that created them. So in a way, yeah, it kind of like it gave credence to the fact of UFOs. It gave credibility to a certain degree. They came forward saying, look, we understand that it may happen. We understand that miracles may happen, but don't lose faith that God created everything. He created those, so I think that kind of like also, is part and parcel. A lot of people go banging on about Nephilim. Christian, what's your take on this Nephilim business from from the point of view of I know that looking at your videos and stuff, that you tend to sort of mock the idea a little bit.
I do.
Yeah. And it is a viral theory that UAPs are disembodied Nephilim spirits, joking that demons shouldn't need titanium alloys or anti-gravity propulsion. But my question is, if the biblical worldview includes physical resurrections and angels bound in physical chains, why is it completely impossible for spiritual entities to interact with a pilot or physical craft?
Yeah, great question. And I don't oppose that. I think it is possible, absolutely. And I think that we need to, once again, just continue to have the conversation. But here's the rub. Let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the scientific evidence we have. Does the scientific evidence point to more of a spiritual entity doing these things, operating these aircraft, these anomalous vehicles underwater, above water? Or does it point to something more material, something more organic? And so I think this just requires more conversation, more research, the ability to say, hey, we don't know, but we want to stay curious. And that's kind of, yeah, I do poke fun at the whole Nephilim thing. And the reason why I did that is that was what a month or two ago, this entire group of Christians came out and said it was. We've all agreed that, it is the disembodied spirits of Nephilim. And listen, if that's your belief system, and that's, what for many of them, that's what they believe, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But then what do we do with that? Right? So now what? So you've just named it, you've just claimed it, What do we do with it? Because if it's the disembodied spirit of Nephilim, that means we're helpless. There's nothing we really can do to protect ourselves, to protect our airspace. I mean, we're defenseless. It's like, and so I think that that's the reason why I pushed back a little bit on that, because again, if that's the case, then why haven't we seen that through other parts of Scripture? Why didn't we see that in other ancient script texts as well? Why all of a sudden now the Nephilim need to use the craft to get around? And so again, I'm not saying I have the answers to that. I'm just saying we just have a rational discussion around this instead of the evangelical mainstream Christian church saying, "Yeah, we've named it. We're good. Move on. This is what we're going to tell our congregations," because that is actually happening. And I have a real problem with that because none of those pastors are trained in this area. None of them are investigators. None of them are researchers. None of them have written papers on it. None of them. They've gone to seminary. They've gone to Bible college. So I'm not trying to be mean and say stick to your lane, but I am. Stick to your lane. If you want to come out of your lane to research this and now you have some valid input, great. Let's have the conversation. But until that happens, you know what? Stay open, stay curious. And that was what the majority of people that I interviewed said as well, and again, my hope is that Christians, would just continue to have confidence rather than fear. Because when you tell me it's a disembodied spirit of Nephilim, what's the first thing going on in my mind? Fear. And you know what? We've used fear enough within the religious systems. And I'm sick and tired of it. We need to stop using fear as the way to, describe something, name something. I just think that, if we believe in a good God, which most people in different types of religious systems do, then I don't see fear being a big part of that. And so my breakaway from that was a big part of coming away from this idea of everything being fear-based. And so, yeah, I'm always going to push back against that.
Yeah. I think, with the, three main sort of monotheistic religions, single God religions, I think that we're predisposed, and we have always been predisposed, to understand this God. And it's one of these things where it's kind of like, we will never, by the very nature of God, we'll never understand God, because he is within us and we don't understand ourselves a lot of times. So how on earth we can understand omnipresent God is beyond me. But and that's not the whole thing. That's not what it's about. Understanding what God is or who God is. It's the knowing that in the scriptures he gave his son for us. He sacrificed. He bled for us to forgave our sins, and that's the trick of it. That's the thing that matters, and the resurrection. And I think with this, in a way, it's a bit of a strange way. I think with this accelerated growth of interest in the UAP, it's almost snippets that are tantalizing. And these tantalizing snippets of information we keep getting, and these snippets of disclosure from people that are really quite credible, are tantalizing to us. And we do equate them automatically because we think, oh, it's got to be Nephilim. It's got to be, something out of the Book of Enoch, or, it's got to be biblical biased. because once again, it's dealing with the same remit. It's something we don't understand, and it's something that is omnipresent. It's always there, and it seems to know what we're doing. It seems to know how we're thinking, and it seems to react to us. And I kind of like clump it all together into one thing of single origin. Both the paranormal and UAPs. I think they're all one of the same origin. You very often get paranormal people like yourself who had that paranormal incident with that person who you really, it affected you. You thought, yes, this, and you heard this voice from the stomach, which is very strange. And that's quite a telltale sign, actually, from the stomach. But it's one of these things where the paranormal knows and reacts in much the same manner as many witness claims for UAP or abduction testimonies. So I think it's all kind of, but we kind of do relate it because we truly do want to understand, our place in this world and our this God. But we'll never really fully understand God. And I think the same part, I don't think we'll fully understand. I don't believe we'll fully get disclosure. Do you think we will actually get some form of disclosure that it's something to get our teeth into? Will we get a bit of meat on that bone, do you think, Christian?
My optimistic answer would be yes. But it might not come the way we want it to come. It might not be our particular flavor of disclosure. Let's put it that way. Because look, this is the way I look at it. You and I are in this space. This conversation is a normal conversation. We'll go down the street and have a cup of coffee and strike up a conversation. We'll talk about something like this. This is this is our life, right?
Yeah.
Who we are. The average person, I just said this to a friend of mine the other day. I sat down in the coffee shop and I'm not trying to listen to conversations, but you know how it is. You start hearing them. And they're talking about their car. They're talking about their doctor. They're talking about their dog. They're talking about their kids. They're talking about normal three-dimensional stuff, right?
Yeah.
No one's having an interesting conversation in the entire coffee shop, and I realized that maybe we collectively as humanity, the collective consciousness, maybe that's the blockage because we're just not there yet. So maybe they are right. Maybe we're not prepared for it. Maybe disclosure does more damage than good. I've thought about that several times. I'm ready for it. You're ready for it. We've been ready for it. But to what expense? What's the cost? And I think that goes back to Dr. Guerrero's comment about chaotic disclosure. And so, I'm optimistically hopeful, but based on what we're seeing right now, it's going to be a slow drip.
Right. Yeah, I think it's I think they like clay on a wheel. They're molding this until we're in the right shape.
And I think they're testing the waters also. I think that, okay, well, let's put Spielberg's movie out there. Okay, what's the pulse? What are they saying now? How are they reacting? Okay. Let's launch, download another tranche of these classified documents. Okay, how did they react? We know that we live in a world where there's psyops going on all the time. Okay. I love that here in the United States that we're having congressional hearings and they're finally starting to investigate MK Ultra after all these years, Project Bluebeam and some of these other things. Is it too late? I don't know. I think we still need to have those conversations, but whether it's, Timber Chat, Anna Paula Luna, some of these people that are really pushing, and I so appreciate the fact they're doing, they're the ones going in these skiffs, they're getting the downloads, they're getting to see these things. And they come out of it saying, hey, I think it's an interdimensional being. I'm not sure. All I know is it's not of this world. The fact that you've got Grush talking about the fact that, we've got biologics. I think we've got so much now. It's a matter of where do we aim, where do we aim
Yeah.
the gun? And I think that's the reason why it's been. I feel like it's actually getting slowed down.
Mm. It could well be. Do you think they're having trouble because do you think the part of the trouble is because you said yourself that you're ready for disclosure, I'm ready for disclosure, and there's quite a few hundreds, millions of people that are ready for disclosure, and yet there is also a vast majority of people who really couldn't give a damn, who pay it no heed at all.
No.
The same as the people that you say. I've often said to people in the past, look, have you gone your whole life, 50 years, 60 years of your life, and nothing has happened in your life that you can't explain? And they go, yeah, nothing. No, we're very black and white, Phil. Yeah, nothing strange. What, nothing at all has happened that you cannot really account for being logical? Yeah, no, there's nothing, no. Can't think. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, is it because do you think it could be? Because it's crossed my mind. It's only speculation, but um, do you think it's because the the people that they could like David Walsh when he was on the steps and he came out with it, some are bipedal and some are intelligent plasmoid entities. Is it because there's they're catering to that fraction of people that are ready to hear it, but they don't want to disclose to the mass of people because they would interpret it in a totally different manner? Do you think it could be that?
It certainly could be. They've got to look at the repercussions in terms of the psychology of humanity right now. And I think that's why they're testing the waters. But along those same lines, we also have to keep in mind that the pushback we're getting on disclosure has a lot to do with the technology. I mean, tomorrow, if they release free energy, you really think these gas and coal and oil companies that have been around for the last 100 years, and made their incredible fortunes are just going to roll over? No. And so, do you think the military industrial complex, who relies on what they rely on, is just going to start opening this as open source? No, it's not going to happen. And so, even the cancer industry, look at it as a whole. Look at the hospitals and everything that we have just revolving around the disease of cancer. How much money is made? You think that when we show the technology of a med bed that we can heal it like that? See, those are threats. Those are threats to the infrastructure of how the global economy works. It works by way of the dollar or by way of currency, right? And so if you affect that, it's a trickle down effect. And so I think maybe some people are looking at it from that perspective as well. Like, okay, we can roll this out, but we're gonna have to do it slowly. We can't just do it overnight. Tim Burchett often says that. He goes, it's one thing about aliens and UFOs, but what about all these black op programs that we're spending billions and billions of dollars on, and there's no accountability? Now, I think that's happening in every form of U.S. government, regardless of whether it's UAP or NHI. But to his point, he's saying I want to approach from this financial angle as well. So I think that there's just it's so nuanced. There's so many different areas where it could be a big problem. And so, I try to have an open mind, and I try to think about, okay, if I had this information and I really did care about humanity, would I just roll it out, knowing what I know? And that's a tough question. If I was in an area of political office or had to make those decisions, whether it be the president or something like that, what would I do? I don't know. I would hope that I would make the right decisions and trust the American people, regardless of what the backlash might be. But I think the technology has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think you are right there. I think you see that it's a strange thing. They seem to have this technology which is able to do some amazing things, defy Newtonian physics completely. And yet they're on witness accounts of abductions. They're strangely childlike in their understanding of us. They're almost unaware, totally, fundamentally unaware of the human element, the emotional element. They're unaware that they're putting somebody on a table and giving them a good probing or putting something under their skin won't have detrimental effects to that person's psyche, to that person's emotional well-being. They all, not even to the point of there's been instances where this insectoid alien looks into the face of a screaming witness, abductee, and says,
Yeah.
"Why are you crying?"
Right.
Absolutely crazy. And they seem to, on purpose, they seem to exhibit this missing time. They seem to place have this ability to put missing time on abduction witnesses. I mean, it's really flipping traumatic, Christian. It's absolutely, I mean, they'd be arrested left, right, and center if it was you or I doing this nonsense. Yes, they have the technology, but yes, they are. And maybe we've downed them, and maybe we've gained their technology, but maybe we can't come forward with them because they're a bit of an embarrassment.
Mm.
Because they are so childlike. They are so
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to meet one. I
Yeah.
would really, really enjoy it, just to sort of, get to grips with what its whole demeanor is about.
I think that in regards to what you're referring to in the childlike, and I'm in agreement. I've heard different theories on this in terms of fractured soul, and so when you have fragmented areas of your mind or your soul, if you will, then that means you're only using a certain percentage of it. So when we look at in psychology the idea of a psychopath, right? That means that they're only operating at a certain level in terms of the way they see things, the way they behave, and the way they respond. And I look at the cosmos and all the different species that may exist, and I go, why would they be any different? If they're operating out of a soul, if they're operating out of some area of consciousness, what makes them any different? Couldn't they be nefarious also in their day-to-day activities, just the way humans are? And so, yeah, I do believe that people have had some horrific traumatic abductions, and I try to juxtapose that with stories from Michael Carter, where he was actually healed by one of these beings. And so, once again, in the Christian world, we might look at it as black and white, demons and angels. That's fine. But I also look at the fact that there's a possibility also that with a lot of these abductions are obviously coming from the short grays, and the fact that maybe we're not even dealing with anything with a soul. It's just an absolute clone. It's just a replica. And so again, we don't know. We can only speculate. But Yeah, it's traumatic, and I've said the same thing. You know, I'm willing to meet one and have a conversation, but I really don't want to be beamed up, and I really don't want to deal with probes
Yeah, no, I could do without the probing, Christian.
yeah,
Yeah, I could do without that.
with you on
Don't
that.
mind being beamed up, that's fine.
Yeah,
But the probing, yeah, it's another, a cup of tea and a biscuit, maybe,
yeah,
that'd be all right. Sit down, slippers, and have a chat. Lovely, you know. Uh, yeah. I'm gonna just show people because I'm gonna put your Facebook up so people, if they want to contact you, they
yeah.
can. If that's okay. Let's have a look at your Facebook up. Um, Aha, here we go. Hold on a minute. There you go. I've got it here. And boop. There we go. Right. Okay. So this is your Facebook right here. And you can see that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. And that's your book. So he's got really interesting Facebook people. So go give it a like, give it a follow. Um, he's got a vast amount of knowledge and he's got an inquiring mind. What's better than that? Let's face it, Now
I like
he's
to stay
also,
curious.
yeah, yeah. Curious mind. That's right. Yeah. And also I'm just gonna put up we've got something else here. Your YouTube as well, because you do have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and just for those, if you want to subscribe, that's fine. This was actually for my research. I was creating these videos. Uh, there's not a lot there. It's just a few little clips. But again, this is kind of my way of it's my own therapy. Let's put it that way. You know, I certainly don't have a big, huge following or a YouTube channel. It's my own way of kind of processing my own information. Sometimes listening back to it. But a few people have asked me to go a little deeper in some of these subjects, and so I might start doing that and putting out a few more YouTube videos if people want.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And listen, people, show the love, go over, subscribe. I did because the thing is, as it evolves, which I'm sure it will, you don't want to miss out on stuff. I certainly don't. So go over, subscribe, give it a like, and yeah, just keep up with it because with people like Christian, they're always evolving. They're always adding stuff to it, and that's how we learn in this. That, by different viewpoints, aspects, mixing it all together. Right, I'm just going to have a little look and see if there's any questions from people. Let's have a look. Okay. Right, we've got Ready Steady Retro. She says, right, let's get it. What are Christian thoughts on when people are having paranormal or cryptid experiences? But when they call for Jesus or angelic help, the encounter stops.
Yeah, that's a great question. Very
Mm.
good question. Yes, there are lots of instances where people were having some sort of an experience, whether it be an abduction experience or something of the paranormal, and according to them, when they were able to call out or refer to the name of Jesus, they believe that the experience stopped. So, and that's why a lot of people say, "Oh, well, this is demonic." Okay, great. That's part of their belief system. I'd like to point out, in addition to that, when people are having very similar experiences, whether it's paranormal or when it is an abduction experience, those that were not Christ followers, if you will, of other religious faiths or not religious, when they had an awakening in their mind that they didn't want this to occur anymore, when they came into that state of consciousness and said, you know what, no, I don't agree with this, this is not what I want, the experience also stopped. So there's some interesting dichotomy going on there. So yeah, is calling on the name of Jesus just taken you to a higher state of consciousness to where now you've decided to intervene in this negative experience and shift it? I hope that answers that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was a great question. Thank you very much for that, Dawn. That was a really good question, actually. And I know from a cryptid point of view, yes, it does. Invoking the name of uh, Lord Jesus Christ does put the fear of God, literally, pardon the pun, in what you're experiencing. Like no other word can. Jesus Christ does it, for some reason. I think it's just I think it is. It could be a case of or that individual's faith behind the word Jesus Christ. Maybe it's the faith behind it which resonates so strongly with
Mhm.
the malevolent force that it's aimed at. But I kind of think it's more what the name stands for,
Mhm.
you know. And I think Jesus Christ is, all powerful. The only one really. But anyway, I'm not going to Bible bash too much on this. Right, I'm going to just ask one more couple of things. You warn against modern Christians blending scripture with conspiracy culture and Hollywood's sci-fi to create an end times movie, as you call it.
Mm.
Um, but by suggesting we should view biblical encounters through the lens of modern physics and non-human intelligence, aren't you essentially doing the exact same thing from an academic angle, Christian?
Well, you know, you could say that. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that point because I do believe it's a matter of perspective. Um,
Mm,
I think that for so long, academia has been in one lane and religion has been in another lane. And again, what I'm trying to do is very similar to the work of Dina Pasulka. I'm trying to merge those two in a graceful and peaceful way. I think for too long they've been separated, and so listen, I don't have the answers, and I know I don't have the answers, and I'm okay with that. But as long as we can continue to have the dialogue, that's the most important thing. And again, like my research, it's not about UFOs. It's about how humans respond when
yeah,
confronted with mystery. It's about helping churches become places where difficult questions can be explored thoughtfully, compassionately, and faithfully. Regardless of where discoveries lead, I
mm,
believe that the pursuit of truth and the practice of humility um, remain deeply Christian endeavors. And so
yeah,
that's ultimately my goal, is to bring people to a place where they feel safe, they feel that they can connect, that they can share. Ultimately, no matter what it is, whether it's UAP and NHI or something else. But I love that we have leaders right now that are open to this subject, are having conversations, and continuing to keep the dialogue open. That's the most important part of any type of relationship, is good dialogue.
yeah. No, I agree. Will it take President Donald Trump? Will it take him to say something for people to actually
Yeah.
believe? Do you think?
Well, word on the street is that he's already been briefed on these beings, on potential hybrid beings. I have a suspicion that he doesn't care. um, I think that his interests are in other areas. Um, I think he has people around him though that care. I think people like Marco Rubio, some of the other people in his cabinet, I think they have a lot more vested interest in this. Maybe they see
Yeah,
the long term picture. I think that President Trump is not looking at this that it affects his immediate presidency. Again, going back to your question about, hey, what happened with Nixon? What happened with Carter? What happened? We're from what Laura Eisenhower talks about from her great grandfather Ike Eisenhower, former president.
Mm.
Every president after that, after Truman, has all been read in. And so, whether you believe that or not, just the idea that each president gets read in on disclosure makes you wonder, how does that affect their presidency? How does it affect the way that they're going to respond to the American public? And maybe, and the weight of that on their shoulders, regardless of political affiliation. I have great respect for the fact that you can carry that around for so many years. I don't think I could do that.
That's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing which I mean, we are human, and being that we're being in the very sense of the word, we cannot keep a secret very well. We just can't. We have built-in egos. Can't help that. It happens. We're a complex creature that is a social animal that we have to share. We have to, by nature, we have to share. And if all of these, a lot of these presidents were read in, I just can't help feeling, look, by now, either one or two of them would have spilled it
Well,
somehow.
I think one was in the process of doing that
Oh, do you?
back in the '60s, and we know what happened to him.
Oh, yeah. Possibly, yeah. Could I think there was yeah, possibly he was, but then he was too good to be president. He was such a good man. I think his moral standing was just, to be.
All right, and all the more reason for a great person to disclose information and say, "I'm not keeping this away from the American public."
Yeah. I think you have got a point. Yeah, you have got a point. Yeah, very, very much so. So yeah, possibly. Yeah. That's still quite an enigma. That's gone on. And just out of curiosity, the car he was in, was it a 3-bench seat car or a 2-bench seat car? Was there just two passenger at the front, or was there
I believe,
and was there Nancy and at the back? Or was
yeah,
there people sitting in the middle?
yeah, no, it was just him. Well, we're referring to Kennedy, correct?
Yeah.
So, Jacqueline, his wife, Jacqueline. Yeah, so it was just the two of them in the back seat, and I do believe it was just a two-car convertible, and there were two Secret Service agents on the back bumper, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I remembered.
But
I mean,
what's interesting, if you follow that trail of that whole scenario and the grassy knoll, is that, and there's been so much, you know, incredible research done on this, and why our own government doesn't want to open it up. I have a good idea why, but the fact that if you look at Ruby and Sirhan, look at the fact that these guys were basically recruited and were MK Ultra recruits. It just lines up with the whole narrative from the get go. And then you look at who was actually in charge of director of CIA at the time, and I believe it was George Herbert Walker Bush. It's like, you couldn't ask for a better domino effect in terms of getting something done.
oh yeah. No, it was Yeah, no, I brought up because it was like one of these sort of misremembering things where evidently the car he was in was like a 3-seater car. So there was a front bench seats, secondary seats, and then he was in the
I think it
back
was.
with his
I
wife.
I I I don't really know. I can only have the memory of seeing the video.
Yeah, I know. I have the same memory as you. Remember when I was younger seeing it, I was like, "Oh, blimey," you know. But I remember it being a much smaller, less long car with less many seats in it. It's like one of these, just me musing. That's all. Take a
I
notice.
I know somebody that would know. It would be my dad, and he's probably watching this video right now, or he's watching it later. But a quick tidbit while I think about my father. He actually is an experiencer, and to be
Oh,
honest with you, I never knew about it until I started doing my research. So here I am, 50 years later, and I tell my dad, "Hey, this is the research I'm doing," and he goes, "Remember, remind me to tell you what happened on March 15th, 1964, something like that." I thought, what? And so he voice texts me this entire scenario where he's driving to meet my mom at the time, and he's going by the airport, the Miami-Dade International Airport, and he sees an object in the sky, and it's just kind of doing its thing. It's just kind of hovering there, and it's on a bit of an axis. And he's like, "Well, that's strange," and he knows because he's former Navy. He's been around aircraft. He understands. So he pulls his car over, and at 80 something years of age, my dad has this courageous, incredible memory still. And he says that this other guy pulls over right behind him, and he remembers the exact same car the guy had. He remembers the shirt he had on, the brown pants, everything. And so the guy is also looking at this object in the sky, just kind of hovering there. My dad's like, "Wow, that's interesting." And so he realizes it's not aircraft, it's not a balloon, it's not any of those things. It is something that he can't identify. So he goes to his trunk because, in his words, he was able to borrow a pair of binoculars from the Navy, but they were actually his. And so as he goes into the trunk to get the binoculars, he pulls them back out to look in the sky above the tree line, and it's gone. And so there was no sound, no anything that happened. It was just there, and then it was gone. And he looks back at the other guy like, "Hey, what happened? Where'd it go?" And the other guy's like, and the guy gets in his car and takes off and goes the opposite direction. And my dad gets in his car and goes and he meets my mom for lunch. Well, my mom, some of her friends, their boyfriends worked at the Homestead Air Force Base. And she finds out the next day that Homestead Air Force Base had their radars going off tilt because there was some unidentified aerial phenomena in the area the same time my dad was there. So he's got his eyewitness account, and he's got there's some radar account as well showing that he actually witnessed what he believes to be the UFO. So
wow.
yeah,
Well, thank you for that, and your dad. Thank you very much for your for your dad as well in that account.
yeah,
Well, it's good it was backed up with radar as well.
yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's not often that happens. Not that often.
No.
No, brilliant. Yeah. Um, what do you think of the RV Loeb and the this new UAP task force that they've created? Do you think it will have the full backing? Do you think it will have the full backing of the government, presidential government? It will be given authority to look into records, or do you think it's just going to be like a Quango group?
Unfortunately, I believe it's a nothing burger because, as far as I know, they haven't even been given subpoena power.
Mm.
So, so there you go. So, what are they going to go knock on someone's door at S4 and say, "Hey, we'd like to see your facility"? It's not going to happen. So if sitting members of Congress don't even have the ability to do a surprise visit, then I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of a dog and pony show at this point, and they're just kind of like feed them cake, and I think that's what this is. To be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I do agree. I think it's but that was quite grasping at straws, and especially having as soon as I knew, and I like Harvey Loeb, but as soon as
Yeah.
they said, look, kind of we're gonna have him heading it up, I thought, really? I was like, well, because he's always been very pro alien anyway. I mean, when Three Eye Atlas was on the scene, he was the one, vehemently saying, look, it's an alien probe, it's an alien probe, which I think possibly it could have been. I think it was. It was having some very strange behavior when it came to the sun. And the
I
sun was
do find it
reacting.
interesting that they decided to put biologists on that team. And so,
Yeah.
okay, all right, that makes you wonder. Okay, why are you putting biologists on this team? Unless you're dealing with biology, right? And
Yeah,
so,
right.
there's one way. I think if I think they came up a little short. I'd like to see maybe some more like theoretical physicists that would be a part of that team. I think we need some people in some abstract spaces that would add a little more credibility to that team. But I don't know. Let's see what they come up with.
Yeah. Okay. Right, before we wrap this up, I want to show people, because you've got a fantastic website, really, really good website. I just want to show people. I was taken back by this. I was like, wow. Let's have a look. Get it up. Here we go. It will come up. It will, hopefully. Here we go. Look. Very atmospheric. I like the dark background. But yeah, so I think that's home. Yeah, that is home. Nice suit, actually. I like that suit. Tie is lovely. You got a lovely tie there.
Yeah, it's fun.
Very, very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Actor. You've been an actor. Have you been in anything I've seen?
Not unless you're watching a lot of TV with commercials.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, people, look, check it out. It's Christian Pedersen, all one word, .org. Okay, and the link is going to be in description for everything that I've shown on here. Oh, blimey, that's a bit. Oh, is that one of your films?
Yeah, that was an independent film, a Viking in that film. So it's interesting.
I quite like horrors. That looks like a horror, potential horror.
Yeah,
Is it a thriller?
yeah. It was a Viking fantasy short that they presented. You could see the blood on my face there.
Yeah, that's a bad day at the office, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a bad day at the office.
Yeah. Yeah, if you click on research and go down to the bottom, that's where I have some of my links on ongoing. And I will be updating this soon with the white paper based on my research. I'm excited to get that out and start kind of
Okay.
getting
Okay, good.
getting it published in some of the different journals, hopefully. And again, just the idea is to start the conversation and to show people that we can have this conversation anywhere. And I think one of the best places to have the conversation is within the community of faith. I
Yeah.
don't think it should be the last place. I think it should be one of the first places to have it because, again, this is where people should feel safe and secure and be able to discuss things that they don't understand yet.
Yeah, because for people listening to this, if they're not watching it, they're listening to this. We're on christianpedersen.org on the research tab of his website. And he says just briefly, my doctoral research sits at the intersection of phenomenology. Gee, I couldn't say that word.
Yeah.
Christian theology and a UAP disclosure moment. 12 leaders, 6 traditions, 1 question. What happens when faith encounters something it was never designed to address? So, yeah, no, brilliant. Absolutely excellent. I'm very impressed with that. It's a really nice website. you know, I've seen a lot of them, but they're all like template ones, you know, but that's really nice one. I like the way it's done. Listen, honestly, Christian, thank you very, very much for joining. And do you know what? I think at some point, it'd be nice when you do your white paper and research into more into the this whole phenomena.
Yeah.
And perhaps like kind of are you thinking about when you do research encompassing a bit of the paranormal and stuff that happens as well?
Absolutely. I believe that's going to be a part of the crossover as I continue to bridge these gaps that's needed in this empirical research. And so, it depends on, which lane I decide to go down. I like to stay curious all the time, and I like to kind of stay cutting edge. And so I'm excited, to be able to continue to go down this pathway. I'm hoping to do a follow up to this research and maybe expand it globally. And so, if people in your audience and some of your followers want to participate in that, please reach out to me. I'm always looking for people of the faith world that might have connections with leaders. That's the only qualification. They need to be an adult. They need to speak English, and they need to be some sort of a leader within their church. And my hope is to be able to expand the research and really get a broader idea. Because 12 is a nice start, but really we need some depth to this. And then also, as a result of my research, I actually compiled all my data, and based on the leaders, and I'm still in the process, but this is kind of a rough draft of a book I'm doing. It's called "A Faith Big Enough for the Cosmos," and this is a book that I'm creating specifically for pastors and leaders. It's going to be a guide, it's a tool to say, hey, here's what the research shows. Here's how these leaders handled it. Here's a way that you could potentially handle this in your church. So instead of just being clueless and grasping at straws or just following one narrative, this gives them kind of a pathway. It gives them a toolbox, if you will, on how to handle some of these tough questions within their congregations.
Well, as I say, brilliant. Yeah, that I can see that. I can see the angle you're coming from. I can see the angle you're coming from. I like it. I do like it. Yeah, because I was piecemealing together a bit of information on the whole disclosure thing. And yeah, I think with the church, I think it's I definitely think that the answers do ultimately lie with the church, you know. I really do. I think a lot of the answers do, and I think a lot of the reins are held on this disclosure by the church. You know, we'll probably never know, but I think they are. You know,
There's definitely some crossover, and I think that it's okay to say that. It's okay to stay curious, and it's okay to invite this in and not feel threatened. I think
yeah,
that if you have a relationship at any form, any level with God, I think that it's okay to have these conversations.
yeah, I think so. I think it is. On that note, listen, Christian, thank you very much. I'd love to have you on again at some point, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. I've enjoyed this. It's been great.
And everyone, if you want to find out more about Christian and click on his website, his Facebook and his YouTube, show the love, okay? And it's all in the description, all the links, okay? Christian, thank you very much. I'll speak to you very, very soon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Great. What a fantastic guest. Absolutely brilliant. And yeah, just it's blown me away. You know, so like his train of thought is absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. So yeah, check him out. It's all on description. I want to say thank you very much for joining us anyway. Once again. It's been great having you, and I hope you sort of like take something from this, Next week, I had a guest on, but I had to do a recorded. So I'm going to be dropping that because, as I say, next week I'm going to be away. I am going to do videos when I'm away, so you will know where it is, but I'm going to wait until I get there because it's a bit like Christmas. I really only like presents if they're wrapped, you know. So I'm going to wait until I get there and then I'll unwrap it, you know. But there is a reason that I'm there, and it's more kind of cryptid plus a little bit UFO, but somewhere I haven't been before and looking forward to going. So it's going to be a holiday come research outing. Okay. But once I get there, so keep an eye, follow on my Facebook, keep an eye out. Okay. I'm going to be posting updates. And yeah, thank you very much for joining. We do appreciate it. God bless. Take care, everybody. And
I know what I saw out there.